What's going on, adventurers? Vulkan here, and today we're talking about the Frost Priest build. So the goal of this build is to provide a well-rounded healing spec that makes it easy for new players to get the hang of healing in New World. Because in this game, you don't have that same process as healing in games like World of Warcraft. Instead, most of your heals are skill shots, meaning you either need to place them or aim them yourself. Now, you do have some targeted heals that can be used, and we're going to go over some changes to your settings that'll make these skills easier to cast. Now, just because this build is aimed at newer players doesn't mean it's not viable in endgame. You can take this setup all the way to max level, you'll be just fine. Just continue to apply the principles that we cover here, and you'll be able to handle anything that the game throws at you. So let's go ahead and get things started with the weapons and the skill trees. So for the Frost Priest build, we need to equip the Life Staff and the Frost Gauntlet. Now, this pair of weapons synergize super well, and they're going to give you a good combination of crowd control and healing power. So the Life Staff deals nature damage against enemies, and this also makes it useful for leveling zones and the first dungeon, which is called Amrine, because this place is full of undead, right? They're weak to nature damage, so you're not only healing, but you're also dealing extra damage to them as well. So for the Life Staff, let's break down this skill tree. So you want to take these nodes in the following order as you level up. So the first one you want to take is Absolved. This is going to cause all of your attacks to no longer consume mana. Now, without this, you're not going to be able to heal effectively. This is an S tier node. You have to take it because without this, the build just doesn't work. And honestly, it's kind of funny that they put this as a node and not just baked it into the Life Staff itself. So interesting stuff there, but make sure to take Absolved. Then we'll want to take Sacred Ground. This is for some AoE healing. Next, we'll take Divine Embrace for some single target healing. Then we'll pick up Blissful Touch. This is connected to Absolve, and this is going to cause your light attacks to heal allies. This is going to be your bread and butter. As you are just sitting there, doing your thing and healing, you need to be constantly using light attacks. Attack the enemy. As your attacks pass through party members, it'll heal them for 20% of your weapon damage. So this is going to be your filler. Just do this all the time. Next thing you want to do is grab Bend Light. This is over in the Protector tree. This is going to cause your healing to increase by 20% after you dodge. So as you're going through and you're fighting bosses, you're out PvPing, whatever you want to do, make sure to be kind of not consistently, but dodging fairly often. That way you can keep this buff up. Then you want to grab Beacon. Now, Beacon is a great skill. This deals damage to enemies, but it also creates an AoE healing ring around that target for 10 seconds. Now, in dungeons, this is a great source of passive healing. If you ever played Resto Shaman, you'll love this. It just feels so close to that playstyle. Now, next up, you want to pick up Privilege, Infused Light, and Holy Ground. These are going to help buff the skills that we already have by reducing their mana cost, increasing your mana regen, and improving Beacon's range. Then we want to pick up Mending Touch. This is going to cause all of your heavy attacks to remove debuffs from allies. So if you have an ally that gets disease on them, fire up a heavy attack, send it their way, and it'll remove that debuff from them. Next thing you want to grab is Radiance's Blessing. Now, this is for Beacon. It makes it last 5 seconds longer, so no brainer. Make sure to pick that up. Next, we have Blessed. This is going to give Sacred Ground much more healing output because all your allies that are in Sacred Ground, their incoming healing is increased. Then we want to grab the Shared Struggle node under Divine Embrace. So this is going to create a chain heal to other nearby party members who are low on health. Again, this really kind of plays into that Resto Shaman. So as you're healing with Divine Embrace, if there is another weakened ally near them within 8 meters, then you'll heal them as well. Then we want to grab Rebound, which is going to have it jump to another party member. So if you heal one that's hurt and there's 2 near that individual that's hurt, it's going to heal all 3 of them. So this is a great package for getting into those first dungeons because players aren't going to be dodging as often. They're going to be struggling with mechanics. So they're going to get hit by quite a few more things. And because of that, having things like Rebound and Shared Struggle are going to save you mana and also keep them closer to being topped off. Then we have Sacred Protection and Intensify, both support nodes. So we want to make sure to grab those. And then lastly, we have Spirits United, which is going to increase our mana regeneration, Revitalize, and Desperate Speed. Desperate Speed is going to help with cooldowns. And then we have Revitalize, which causes all of your cooldowns to be reduced whenever you hit with a light attack, getting those big heals off of cooldown much faster. So this setup is going to help your team stay topped off, keep your mana in check, and give you some bonus healing if your team gets cleaved, since that Divine Embrace is now a chain heal. Overall, this build is equipped to handle most situations, so you should be well-rounded enough to handle all of the dungeons and some light PvP action. So let's go ahead and flip over to the Ice Gauntlet and talk about the skills that we'll be using for this weapon. So the Ice Gauntlet itself is super easy to spec out. We want to take these 3 nodes first. We want Critical Rejuvenation. This is going to cause your critical hits to restore mana. Incredibly important. Then we're going to take Ice Storm. It's an AoE. It slows enemies down and deals damage over time. Then we want Gathering Storm. So this is our moneymaker. So this is going to cause 3 consecutive light attacks to regenerate 15 mana. And because we'll be using mana pretty much the entire time while we're healing, we want a way to quickly get some mana back without relying on potions. This node is how we do that. So you need to make sure you grab this one. This is just like Absolved. It's kind of up there in that S tier category. Next, we want to take Critical Frost. So this is going to give you an increased critical chance while in a frosted area, which means we need to stand either in our Ice Storm or near our Ice Pylon, which we'll be talking about here in a second. So you might be asking, why do we want a critical chance if this isn't a DPS weapon, right? We're not trying to push out damage. And that's correct. However, we do have that first node we picked up called Critical Rejuvenation. And remember, that causes critical hits to restore mana. So not only will we be restoring mana with our Gathering Storm when we're using our 3 consecutive light attacks, but if one of those crits, we'll get even more mana back. So it's important to kind of buff up that critical chance as much as we can. So let's go ahead and flip over into the builder tree. We want to take Ice Pylon, and then we want to take Empowered Frost. Again, this is going to help regain even more mana as we use spells in our frosted areas, which again is either Ice Storm or standing directly next to your pylon. Next up, we want to take Entombed. So this is going to give us like an ice block style skill, which gives us a huge boost. I'm talking a massive boost in mana regen, and it also makes us invincible for a short duration. Now, this can be broken, so don't just get up and walk off, right? This isn't like the old school Frost Mage over in World of Warcraft where you ice block and that's it. This thing can be shattered, and you need to be aware of that. So after you've taken all of these nodes and these skills, the rest is up to you. You can take these in whatever order you want to, but I highly recommend taking these particular nodes. So take everything connected to the pylon. Why? It's going to increase its health, its damage, all that fun stuff. But the final node, called Ultimate Frost, will double the ice pylon's health, but it also extends the ice pylon's frost radius to 5 meters, giving you a bigger frost area in order to stand and move around in. That way you can have a little more mobility and flexibility to keep that same frost buff, so you can regenerate mana, you can lower your cooldowns, all of that, so you don't have to stand right next to your pylon the entire time. It's just one of those convenience items. Then we have Frozen Touch, Refreshing Frost, Energized Critical, Weakening Gust, and Storm Summoner. All of these are going to either improve a skill that you have, or they're going to give you a better chance at lowering your cooldowns and restoring mana. I'm not going to go deep into these because they're not as impactful, but we have points to spend. These are the ones that I highly recommend you spend those points on. Now, because we need our life staff to heal, we shouldn't be using the Ice Gauntlet for very long. Just enough to drop some crowd control, recover your mana, drop your Ice Pylon. I mean, it truly is a support weapon, so make sure to keep that life staff out and only switch to your Gauntlet when you absolutely need to. And speaking of weapons and armor, what should we be looking for early on? As you're leveling, just focus on finding gear that is either of the priest or of the cleric. This is going to give you an increase to focus and intellect, or focus and constitution. Now, there are some awesome perks out there. Ones to look for your weapons are Blessed, which increases your healing bonus, and Siphoning Blow, which will cause your attacks to restore mana. So these are the two ones I would look for early on. Now, as you get higher into end game, there are way better pieces of gear, and they're more specific as well. They'll increase your Divine Embrace effectiveness. They'll help your Ice Gauntlet deal more damage with Ice Storm and regain even more mana. So there's a lot of different things you can do, but for now, I would say early on, just look for Blessed and Siphoning Blow. Now, just as a note as well, because I'm sure some people are thinking about it, what about my faction gear? Well, early on, faction weapons aren't exactly the best thing here. They do have some nice perks, they do have some decent stats, but really they're just a bridge until you can find something better. For instance, I had my faction life staff. I went in, I ran Amrine, and I came out with a much better staff that had just randomly dropped than the one I had purchased. So that something to keep in mind. Honestly, the faction gear, it's going to become much more valuable once you can reach Destroyer or Commander tier. Then those staves have Blessed, some other nice perks that are really going to help round this thing out. Now, once you get towards level cap, you can also start finding some really cool weapon drops in the world, or you can farm weapons from bosses. For instance, the glowing life crystal staff from Dynasty Shipyard. This is literally like a perfect staff. I mean, for this build, like it literally is perfect. It has Blessed, which increases your healing bonus. It has Refreshing Divine Embrace, which makes your Divine Essence, if you use it on a target below 50% health, it reduces that cooldown by 39%. So again, you can use those heals much more quickly, which is what we need. And it comes pre-socketed with a Rally Gem, which is the one we want. This increases all of your damage and outgoing healing while you're at full health. So quite literally at level 55, this is one of the best staves that you can have at that point in time. Are there better ones? Of course, there's some legendary ones out there we can chase down. But for now, I just wanted to show you guys there's stuff out there that's going to be absolutely phenomenal for this build. So now that we've covered weapons and armor, let's talk about consumables and gems. So for gems, you want to slot in a Diamond Rally Gem. We just talked about this, right? This is going to increase all of your outgoing healing and your damage by 15% while you are at full health. And because you're a healer in the back line and your tank's kind of handling everything, you shouldn't be taking too much damage, so this should honestly be up most of the time. Now, for your armor, you can slot in whatever gems you would like, right? If you're weak against elemental or nature, slot in gems to protect against those. Or you can figure out what type of damage your enemies deal. So let's say you want to chain Dynasty Shipyard, figure out what type of damage they deal, and then slot in warding gems to help with those as well. That way you don't take as much damage, and because of that, it shouldn't take as much to get back to full health. So then you can start taking advantage of that rally gem again. Now, to complement your gems and give you an extra boost to focus and constitution, you can also eat special food. And this is something that, again, some players don't know about. I know myself, for a couple betas, I didn't know that there was stat food, and this was really useful. So early on, you can eat things like fruit salad, venison pot roast, or a melon cream tart. And all of these are going to give you a nice boost to your focus for about 25 minutes, which increases your healing. Some of them also give you boosts to constitution to increase your health. So before we talk about some recommended settings to make your healing life a little bit easier, let's cover that last big topic, and that's going to be attributes. So this one is pretty straightforward. Dump all of your points into focus. Make sure to reach at least 50 constitution, that way you can get the consumables buff, right? Make them last longer. But since we're primarily healers, we don't want to split our points into intellect because we don't need the extra damage to our gauntlet. We just use it for crowd control and mana regen. So you want to focus on focus. And if you do that, everything will work out just fine. So before we wrap up, I would highly recommend making these particular changes to your settings so that it's easier to heal. So go ahead, press escape, click on settings, then click on gameplay. Now here we have a few options. The first thing I would say, turn on targeted healing. This is going to cause your heals to target group members, and this is going to make your life literally 1,000 times easier. If you don't have this on and you try to use Divine Embrace, you have this super small AoE that you have to line up with the person, and then you have to cast it and then try to heal them. And because players are moving constantly, right? We're always dodging, we're kiting, we're getting behind enemies. It is almost impossible to sit there and line up and have you cast a spell and hit the actual target that you want to hit. So you're going to miss a lot. Just turn this on. Makes your life way easier. So next up is Sticky Lock. Now, I prefer this one if there's that one player who doesn't dodge and just eats everything. So this helps you stay locked onto them, so you can just bomb heals, heal them up, and then keep moving. If you don't like Sticky Lock, I would say keep it off, only turn it on when you absolutely need to. Now, the last piece here is group mode. This lets you use your scroll wheel to flip through group members super quick. It makes things really easy. It's a bit of a no-brainer, but you go into a dungeon, you click on your healing skill, it'll target a random member on your team, usually the one with the least amount of health, and then you can use a heal. Then you can use your scroll wheel to go to the next person and heal them up, or you can skip that person and go to the next one. So it just makes life much easier. And I think a lot of these things should be on by default, but they're not. So overall, folks, this is a fantastic build for getting started with healing in New World. And you can take this thing, like I said, all the way to end game. You shouldn't have any issues in dungeons, PvP, farming runs, overworld dungeons. Just remember to keep an eye out for all of the different things we talked about here, and you should be good to go. So let me know in the comment section below, what type of healing do you guys like to do? Do you have your own healing spec you've been using? Have you been using the Ice Gauntlet as your secondary weapon? Or are you one of the few that are using a rapier maybe? That way you can get in and do some melee damage. I want to hear from everybody. Thank you guys so much for all of the support. I really appreciate it. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.